Welcome to the Heart-Led Business Show, where compassion meets commerce and leaders lead with love. Join your host, Tom Jacobs, as he delves into the insightful conversations with visionary business leaders who defy the status quo, putting humanity first and profit second. From heartfelt strategies to inspiring stories, this podcast is your compass in the world of conscious capitalism. So buckle up and let your heart guide your business journey.
Well, ladies and lords, it's time for the tale of the trading titans in our ticklish tete-a-tete. Today, we're twirling the spotlight on the virtuoso of verve, a luminary of law, a sovereign of the stage, and the Duchess of Dance herself, Kim Bolourtchi. She's rocked the rug from the courtroom to the cha-cha, challenging conventionalities, pushing past predictable to cultivate companies with care, courage, and charisma. So what whopping wisdom will we witness on this whimsical whirl round the world of heart-led business? Well, stay tuned for a great show. And welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you so much, Tom. That is literally the best introduction I've ever had in my life. Love it. Thank you.
Very welcome.
I'm excited to be
I'm
here.
really glad that you're here as well. And, your resume is amazing in terms of the different skills that you have and how you've been able to stack them. So that's pretty amazing. I can't wait to really dive into that a little bit and get into all the details here. But first, what I always like to ask our guests is, what is your definition of a heart-led business?
I love that question. And, as I was thinking about it and reflecting, I think it comes down to people first. A heart-led business is one where leaders have the courage to really put people first. And what I mean by that is allowing people to show up as they truly are, meaning all of their gifts, all of their talents, all of the things that they bring to the table, as opposed to keeping people in boxes of this is the job description, this is what you're here to do, stay in your lane, sit and be quiet and just do that thing. A heart-led business really maximizes the gifts of everybody and makes people feel welcome to show up really fully.
That's awesome. And so that's kind of focusing on the employee. Is that correct? So what about the customer as well? So where does the customer fit into that heart-led business?
Well, the customer is going to benefit by being seen and valued because they're going to align with the mission, the value. The leader of a heart-led business is always going to be really, really clear on the impact that they're going to have in the world. And so their people are going to align with whatever that is because it's going to be stated in the clearest way possible. So people are going to opt into that when they choose to work for that business and with that business. So the customer is going to understand what's in it for them in a very, very clear way. And it's going to feel really, really good to work with a business that approaches things that way. So it's very customer centric in terms of what can we do for you? How can we serve you? How can we impact you? And it's really a place of care. So it's the heart is all the way through the business, from leadership through the way people show up to do the work to the way the customer is served.
And the reason I asked that is I think it was Richard Branson that said we'll always put employees first, customer second, and shareholders third in that order of importance, because as long as you're taking care of the employees, and just like what you said, they're going to be able to take care of the customers, and that whole bottom or top down approach to this is our business, this is our heart-led business. It's going to filter all the way down to every aspect of the business as long as it starts at the top and everybody buys into it. Is that right?
Yeah. And I mean, here's the reality, right? Is a leader is going to have, or a founder, an entrepreneur, they're going to have the heart for whatever they do. Like that's where it initiates. So we don't have an issue there. That person is passionate about what they see. The disconnect usually comes in that middle step of making sure other people see what they see and are passionate about taking that forward in that way so they can deliver this vision, as it's imagined. And so the disconnect and the frustration is I want to deliver this amazing thing to a customer and I want to put this incredible vision into the world, but you've got to be able to help people see that and take action on it to bring it to life. And so if you don't help your employees see what you see and make them care about it in a way that feels really personal and really connected, right, to something they care about, you're never going to give that to a customer in a way that feels authentic and genuine. And so that's why when you asked me, I started sort of there because, for a customer to feel the heart of a business, it you can't miss any
Right.
steps. And so it has to come truly all the way through. And there's no shortcut to that, no matter what people
Yeah.
think. Inspiring all the way through has to
Yeah.
happen.
And I imagine, well, let's actually go into what your business is and what really inspired you to create your heart-led business.
Absolutely. So I have a very, as you mentioned, I have a sort of an eclectic resume. I started out as a lawyer, and I loved practicing law in that I was an advocate for people who didn't have a voice. And that was what inspired me to do that. But I found it restrictive in a lot of ways. And I always sort of felt drawn to people and a bigger purpose. And then I moved into consulting and always wanting to solve the people issues and elevate people in organizations, helping them figure out, like, why are they in conflict and why are they fighting in the first place? I'm also a Latin dancer. So, and I was always keeping these parts separate because there were these rules in society and in business, like, to be successful, it looks this particular way. And so I think in a lot of ways, our traditional ideas about what success looks like, what business looks like, what it takes to succeed are not conducive to heart-led businesses. They're very rigid, right? They're autocratic, they're bureaucratic. There's layers, and you do this thing and you're going to succeed. But what we find is that there are a lot of people who are doing all the things they've been told to do, which was me for a long time, right? Like, show me how to succeed. I will do everything. And I would do all the things, and I'd get there and be like, wow, there's more. I feel there's more, and I don't know what it is. And so now I work with companies who are interested in really elevating all of their people. And by the way, they make a ton of money. I just want to be clear. This isn't a touchy-feely thing, right? This is genuinely how you increase profit, is by leading with heart. And so I'm excited to talk about that. But I'm a C-suite consultant. I work with leadership teams, and I do keynote speaking on this idea because it really is the future of the world. And it makes people really happy and excited to go to work. So it solves a lot of the problems we're
Yeah,
facing.
absolutely. And so how do you incorporate your Latin dancing in with getting to see you come out
So
and do a little cha-cha? And
yes, so this is a funny thing, is even when I started speaking, right, and I started trying to pull all of the years of experience that I have. I also am a professor of communication. I forgot to tell you that part. And so I was telling people this is what I want to do, and I want to get people up and engaged, and people would say to me, oh, you're nuts. Don't you dare try to get people to dance. People are terrified of dancing. That's a terrible idea. You need to get up there and just talk. Be smart, Kim. You're really smart. You have a lot of wisdom. Go with that. Sell that first. So even as unruly as I can be in my world and in my work, I still have all the people telling me, like, oh, dude, play it safe, right? Don't do that. So it's a very interesting dance that I'm always doing in figuring out. Now, it's not always appropriate, and so there are times where it fits better than others, but there is nothing that will get you out of your comfort zone or understand how you can take a structure and play with a structure, right? More than dance, or learn how, even when you're moving backward, which sometimes we unfortunately, will do in business, your energy still needs to be moving
mm,
forward. There's so many lessons from dance that are amazing to leadership. But I think the biggest one is, even if I'm not dancing, like, I don't need to be dancing to show up fully. And it used to be I had this persona that was, the lawyer Kim, and it was very buttoned and very, here's how it is. And consultant Kim was very, here's what we're doing strategically. And now I literally show up in my boots and my whatever I feel like wearing. And it's like, you get my creativity, which is 110%. You get my strategy at 110%. And I'm not hiding any of those pieces. And so we elevate companies so super fast because you've just got all the things at once. And that's really what makes a difference in a heart-led business. When everybody can do that, it is unbelievable, the store of talent and resources that are just sitting there waiting to be
yeah,
tapped.
yeah, no, that's beautiful. I started in corporate America working for oil and gas, and talk about buttoned up. like you, I got yelled at for speaking a little bit loud or laughing in my cubicle,
Mhm.
which is, I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm just having a good time at work. Like, what's so wrong with that?
Right. We spend so much time at work, right? Like it's okay to have a good
We should.
time.
So, do you have any good
Yes.
stories of businesses that maybe were struggling with having their people really come fully to work and are able to be themselves and bring their full self to work, and what that transformation looked like after you started working with them?
Absolutely. So I'm thinking of a company that I just finished working with. And this company was struggling with sort of an identity as a whole. They'd achieved, a level of success and they were doing well, but as it happens a lot of times with companies where they grow rapidly and then they hit a point where they sort of have an identity crisis. The thing that made them very successful at the beginning is it's not working anymore, right? So people are sort of like, I don't know where I fit. We've grown a lot. We have a lot of new positions, a lot of new places to fill, sort of in the organizational chart, and we don't know what gets us to that next level of success. And typically where people look, if they're not in this sort of heart-centered space, is they're looking at
Right.
spreadsheets and they're looking at right, they're looking at numbers. And I'm not opposed to looking at numbers or spreadsheets. This is
Right.
important to
Right.
look at, of course. But they see a spot to be filled and they're putting out an ad for
Mm.
a person, right? They're looking at we need a job. We have a job description, that we need to create and we need to fill that spot. They're not thinking about who do we have that might have this unique talent. And so there were a lot of people at this company who were sort of seeing the growth, feeling vulnerable, like I don't know what this means for me and I don't know what I add in this new paradigm. And the message was sort of like everybody's kind of stay in your lane because this is how we
Mm.
got here. And so I come in and, start asking people, what do you really love about your job? What do you wish you could be doing more of? What's your secret talent? What do you love to do? And I start hearing, there's somebody in accounting who's amazingly brilliant with numbers, but who also has this secret talent of doing graphic design. And they have sketched a new logo. Well, it turns out that the owner has been wanting to update the brand and do a new logo and has been messing with a logo for probably 2 years, had no idea that this person has this gift because they're in the
Right.
accounting lane. And I just mentioned, hey, by the way, do you know this person over here is really, really good at graphic design? I saw their drawing. You might want to take a look. And he was like, really? Seriously? So, casually walks over, let me see what you've got, looks at it and is like, oh my God, that's
Ah,
it. Hence the new logo, like not thousands of dollars
right.
on a marketing company to do a new logo. It's right there under the roof,
Yeah.
right? And this is just one example of so many. And so what happens is people start waking up to, okay, wait, here's what I also love to do. Here's what I also can add. Here's how I can innovate. And so instead of everybody sitting in their lane, just being like, clock in, clock out, do my work, and a leader going, why are my people not innovative and creative? And what do I need to do to inspire them? They start feeling the space for, I actually have an idea. And, not all ideas are great, but you start creating an environment where people are feeling like they can give them and show up differently. And so now I cannot even explain how many initiatives have been brought forth by the people in the organization. They haven't had to hire anybody because people are like, oh, I want to do that. I love that thing over there. So reshifting sort of priorities, what's actually moving the needle versus extra fluff, they're saving money and they're making a ton more money because people are inspired and engaged and excited about what's happening. And this happens every time we go through
Oh,
this
wow.
process.
Oh, that's great. It's
Yeah.
so inspiring that, kind of the old school business can actually transform into that. But is that really dependent though on the leader and really obviously, right?
A million%. And I will tell you, I get a lot of flack from people
Mm.
in my circle because one of the things, I know when I sit down to talk with a leader, if what I hear is, you know, it's them, fix them. It's, I don't know, everybody's just they are not motivated. They are not inspired. They don't do it right. It's them, 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 them. Like they're not going to be a good fit for my work. And I know it because the person who will innovate to the next level and who will close that gap on potential is a leader who's like, okay, I know that there's some things we can be doing better. I'm sure there's some things I can be doing better. I just don't know what they are. But I really want to figure this out. Let's partner to figure this out. And when I say this is gonna be some work, but if you're willing to think outside the box and be open to some new ideas, I think we could really do something cool here. And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, let's go. That person, who's willing to get in there can take their company absolutely anywhere. And that's what it takes right now. And by the way, that is heart, right? That's a willingness to be like, I'm going to open my heart to the possibility that I don't know everything and that it's okay to not know everything. And that the way I was taught in business school might not be the way we move forward, or the way my mentor said, here's the path to success, might not be what my unique gifts are. And there might be a way for me to show up even bigger than I ever imagined.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, because a lot of leaders have that ego within them, and it really prevents them from looking at themselves and saying, well, maybe it is me, and maybe I need to be changing to elevate the rest of the company rather than putting it on the others. Do you think that that can be changed in people? Like, have you seen some leaders that were pretty resistant and they're like, no, it's them. But maybe with a little cajoling and your spirit, you were able to see that maybe there's another way, a better way.
Yes, and I think that, look, I get why leaders are resistant, right? I do. And I have a lot of empathy for it because, it takes a lot of work to become a leader. It takes a lot of work to lead a company. There's tremendous pressure on people to do a good job and to, they're leading people and people are looking to them. And what I'm proposing is a lot of it is uncharted. When I say, hey, the traditional way is uncreative. Let's look outside the box a little bit and try something different that taps into the real skills you have in front of you. Well, there isn't a roadmap for that, right? I mean, I know have a lot of data that it works, and clients who are like, whoa, we're not even competing. We're in a category of one because we're so innovative and creative. So, I guess I have that going for me in making the argument, but it's still difficult for somebody who has to answer to other people and who has never experienced this, right? It's like when you do something new and it's just you trying it, it's scary to do that in and of itself. But when you're leading an entire company, so, like I understand. And the ego, I think in part is I can't look foolish. I can't look bad. I can't make a bad decision. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like I understand all of that. And so, I say it's without judgment that I encounter, the way people are. And, sometimes it's a resistance because it's just, this is the way we've always done it. But the reality is, most people have to get to a point where they really they're slamming their head against a brick wall, right? They're not going to be like, hey, let's mix it up if things are okay, right? They'll be like, that sounds really good. And that's really cool that you're doing all this really great stuff over there. But like, so far, we're okay. And probably there'll be a day where it's not okay, but we're not there yet. Like, we're still pretty comfortable. And, honestly, like, that's the time to do it. You don't want to wait till the house is on fire. You really want to get ahead of it. That's the best time to do this. And I also understand, that it usually takes a significant amount of pain to say, all right, literally, we've tried everything. We need to do something new. So, yes, absolutely. I have encountered leaders who are resistant and who will, start to find the freedom in the process. And then they start to see the results and they're like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have imagined. Right. And along with it comes increased clarity in communication, increased clarity. So this is part of what I do, so they're communicating better and people are being more transparent. And so the whole system is leveling up. It's not, there's no part of rebellion in what I propose. It's very, very strategic and simultaneously creative. And so it's really a beautiful mix of like, we're comfortable in this part of it. We know what strategy feels like, and this makes a ton of sense. And then there's also this like freedom that they don't usually feel that starts to feel really, really good.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that would feel incredible, especially if you're banging your head against the wall and nothing's working. And all of a sudden, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, I would never have thought then allowing my people to be graphic designers and accountants at the same time would create freedom
Right.
in the business. So,
Yeah. And
oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, and it's so
Mm,
profitable. It's so I think sometimes people think heart-led business and they're like, oh, that's such a smushy
right.
idea. I get that a lot. People will be like, this sounds really touchy-feely. And I'm like, okay. And, how is the business of people, right? And really inspiring, motivating people to be creative and innovative. That's everything. If your people are creative and engaged and innovative, you're
Yeah.
making money.
Yeah. Touchy feely all the way to the bank. Right.
Correct. Right? Like spreadsheets don't make you money. They reflect what you've done, but your people are the ones that are
Yeah.
making you money. So like you need to
Yeah.
focus there.
So that's a really great nugget there. I just want to repeat that. Focus on the people and the profits will happen. A good paraphrase of,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
how do we balance then making a profit and not feeling bad about making a profit and still having a purpose-led business or a heart-led business that, feels good and feels, centered within ourselves as a leader?
So it's interesting. I don't ever think anyone should feel bad for making a profit. And this comes from someone who for years I used to give away my most
Mm,
valuable work because I didn't realize the value of it. I have come to learn that the things we do most naturally, most easily, right? With just like we do it because it comes just like, oh yeah, that old thing. Those are our greatest gifts. And so a lot of times, when you have something you're super passionate about and it's something that you do really
mm,
well, right? Like we just are. We're passionate about things we're really good at. And so it can be really easy to feel like I'm so good at this thing that I should just give it away. I should be generous. I should and look, I think it's very generous to make an impact on the world. I think it's very generous to lead with heart. I think it's very generous to lead with purpose. I think it's very generous to lift up entire ecos of organizations. And profit is part of that, right? If I'm running a business and I'm not making any money, I can't pay people what they deserve and they can't pay for their kids to go to school or for them to go to camp or for daycare or for time off. Like in my business, I don't give people, I say, if you need
yeah.
it, take it. I'm not going to nickel and dime and I'm not going to measure. I value people so much, right? That I want to be able to be so generous. And so, this idea of like not valuing your work or not wanting to make a profit or feeling bad about making your profit, I genuinely don't feel that. I think that if you're doing work from a heart centered place, and your focus is on your customer and on making an impact and on making life better in whatever way you do, right? Through how you serve. And by the way, there are not just certain areas of, industry that are impactful and others aren't. I think we can all make an
Yeah.
impact with our gifts no matter what we do. I mean, you give me an industry that sounds absolutely cut and dry and I will tell you how there is
Mm,
purpose and value in it. Because it's just how we show up that adds that value. I think it is, a phenomenal thing to make a profit. And when you are focused on the impact you're trying to make and you're focused on taking that heart all the way through, I think you can feel really proud of making profit. I think where we go wrong, and I see this all the time, is people start there and they're genuine about their intention and then they start
yeah.
to make a profit and they go, "Oh, I've got something." Hyper growth. Let's go, right? And their
Mm,
focus shifts and they forget why they're doing it. And they forget what they care about and who they care about. And people become dispensable widgets. And the customer becomes a little bit more removed. And suddenly it becomes about that spreadsheet and you lose the heart. And it's only a matter of
yep.
time before you lose the thing that makes you really special.
Mm,
So that to me, that is the balance. If the heart line is all the way through and you're making a profit, that's a beautiful balance, right? But if you're focused, if you're prioritizing the profit over people, I'm going to say you've got a short
yeah.
life.
Yeah. I mean, you think about some of the Fortune 500 companies that are making obscene profits. I came out of oil and gas, and so that's one of them.
Mhm.
How are they able to create a heart led business if they don't have one already?
That's a that's a tough
Yeah.
one, right? I think it starts in
Mm,
microsystems. So in the larger institutions, I mean, I think leadership has a lot to do with it again, where you're valuing people and you're putting in broad policies that show you value people. And then you're asking, leaders to create teams where you're starting to do the things I'm talking about, right? Where you're giving people an opportunity to show up in ways that maybe they weren't able to do so before. I think we tend to get very
Yep.
transactional. And I think people sometimes get lost. So a huge, large company can make a ton of money, right? And by some measures, that means they're successful. But if people are turning over a lot and they're unhappy and their quality of life is terrible, right? You can still hold a pretty significant profit margin in a company like that, but you're churning through people. In my world, that's not successful. So there would be people who disagree with me, right? They'd be like, "Oh, it's all about the money." But again, that's not a heart-centered business. And so I would say the value system has to switch, and I don't think it's either or. And I think that is one of the faults of the way we think about things is either you have profit or you have happy people. What I see in the ecosystems I help create
Yeah.
are both. Like truly,
Yeah.
it's and so I think that those large institutions, if they reshape their thinking to making it they're in the best position to actually do that because they have the resources, they have the infrastructure. They just need to rethink, how they're treating people and how they're training their
Yeah,
leaders.
absolutely. And thinking back to my time in those environments, it was definitely not people first. It was always like, let's look at the bottom line. Are we hitting our numbers? Are we doing this? And there was very little like, hey, bring your full self to work. Let's make sure we hear all the different opinions of people. And a lot of times they would have D&I initiatives, and it would just be talking, and nothing was really behind it. So, but I like how you're talking about bringing that heart through all aspects. So through the profit line and through the people line and through the customer line. And as long as those are all aligned together, you should be making a good profit and be proud of the fact that you can make a really great profit, because then you can do a lot of stuff with that. You could help more people. You could give it away. I mean, there's
Yes.
just so many different things that you
Yes.
can do with that profit that still are leading with heart.
Absolutely. And you can innovate with
Yeah.
heart, right? So a lot of times the heart-centered leaders are the ones who want to
Yep.
change the world. And so if you make a profit, then you have resources to
Yeah.
change the world, right? You can innovate and create opportunities for more people to lead with heart. You can do more things. And so I really do support that notion. And just to your point about this is something I feel really strongly about. Companies that have initiatives or where they ask employees for input and things like this, and then they don't actually care and they don't actually listen, like don't even bother because people know the difference, right? I remember I worked at a law school, a top 20 law school, and I remember sitting in a meeting where the dean asked everybody what should happen with this particular room. It was a break room, and asked everybody what should happen with this room. We're going to repurpose it for an hour. It was a lunch meeting. We didn't have lunch, but it was over lunch. Everyone was called into this, right? And she's asking, what should we do with this room? Give me ideas. And so people at first are reluctant because it's not a high trust environment, but then people start talking. Well, and by the way, this room looked like it hadn't been renovated since 1970. Like the old couch that looked like mice could be living in it, the old desk, old coffee maker, like nothing was at all inviting about this space. So I'm thinking this is great. They're going to make it so people actually have a place to chill. So people little by little start giving ideas, right? We need a new coffee maker. Well, they have one on the second floor you can go use. We could use a new couch. Uh-huh. Okay. We could use, so, you get the point. People are giving ideas,
Knocked
and
down.
it's at the 58th minute. She says, "Thank you all for your input. Just so you know, we've actually decided to repurpose this room as a faculty lounge." Now, there isn't a faculty member in this room. This is all staff, support staff, people who work in the Career Center. We're going to be making it into a faculty lounge, and it will be for faculty only and for guests and special events. But thank you all for your input. I really appreciate
Wow.
it. Right?
Guts to
Yeah,
do
no, for real. This really
what?
happened. So, so, that left an imprint for me. Like to this day, I still talk about it and I tell leaders like the damage you do when you ask for input and you're not sincere about wanting it is substantial. So just
Yeah.
don't bother, right? Just be honest. This is what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Move on. Say the hard thing, move on. Don't pretend you care
Yeah.
if you
What a
don't care,
waste of time. Like
right?
all those resources for an hour and no lunch. Like,
And no lunch,
oh,
right?
that's crazy.
People were eating at their desks afterwards.
Wow.
So yeah, if you want to lead with heart, you have to actually have a heart.
Well, Kim, this has been just a fantastic conversation. We are coming up to our time here, but I'd love for you to tell the listeners how they could learn a little bit more about what you do and potentially how they might be able to work with you if it makes sense.
Absolutely. So I do work with leaders. I work with founders, the C-suite leadership teams. I do consulting. I also do communication workshops. So if somebody needs kind of a quick, we're not communicating really well, or we're having trouble with conflict, we're having trouble saying the hard things, I'm definitely someone who loves helping teams solve those issues. I have a motto. I say the thing, and I help people do that really, really well. So that's something, I'm always happy to have a conversation about. And I'm also just happy to chat. So I think in your show notes, you're going to have my email, my website. Both of those things have information about how to contact me. I also really, really love facilitating and speaking. So if anyone has an opportunity, to bring me in, I'm super interactive. If you give me the opportunity to make you dance, I absolutely will. And people love that, but I won't force it. I won't force it, but it's pretty fun.
Yeah, no doubt. That'd be great for a business meeting leading off with a little dance at the top of the hour.
I do it in a way like everyone can do it. People are always like, I'm going to look really bad. I'm going to be really embarrassed, but I teach it in a really, really basic way. Everyone can do it. Even people with 3 left feet, as someone always protests. And, it's pretty cool. So definitely not your boring keynote speech by any means.
Well, Kim, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your words of wisdom, tons of nuggets that I've acquired from just our short talk together. And I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you, listeners, for listening and watching to the show today, depending on if you're on YouTube or Apple or Spotify. I really do appreciate it. And I know Kim appreciates you joining in as well. And all of her links are going to be down in the show notes. So make sure you're checking that out and seeing everything that Kim is doing as well. And then if you could do us a favor and share the show with a friend or family member or colleague that could use the advice that Kim shared, I would certainly appreciate it. And I'm sure your friend would appreciate it as well. And so until next time, lead with your heart.
You've been listening to the Heart-Led Business Show, hosted by Tom Jacobs. Join us next time for another inspiring journey into the heart of business.